Hello and welcome to our channel. Thank you for taking time to look at our latest video. We created and uploaded this video last year sometime. Got a few great views and comments. We appreciate those. And we've got some negative ones, so we're going to have a look at those today. In regards to this book that we did a video on about L.A.Waddell and his Aryan stance, looking at behind the scenes in regard to his history. What was he all about? Who was he? What did he think? What did he believe? Etc. etc. What did he put in his books? We found him to possibly be of the Aryan persuasion, probably British Israel movement, something like that, maybe affiliated with the Christian identity. Never got that far with it. But as you can see here, it says works by the same author, the Phoenician origin of the Britons, Scots and Anglo-Saxons. Okay, and so forth. And in this book here, he makes some statements.
Thank you for taking the time to view our latest video presentation.
Give me a jump here.
In this particular book, there's a preface. He states, at the time in his recent work, or that particular work on British origins, he proved by a mass of new historical evidence that the Sumerians, those foremost civilized and civilizing ancient people whose monuments and high art of 5,000 years ago are the wonders of the modern world, were the long-lost early Aryans. That the Phoenicians were not Semites and has been hitherto supposed, but Aryans and the chief colonizing branch of the Sumerians, and that the people who colonized and civilized India, as well as those who colonized and civilized the Mediterranean, northwestern Europe and Britain, and who were the ancestors of the Britons, were likewise Aryan and belonged predominantly to the Phoenician branch of that race. These results are now dramatically confirmed, both as regards India and the British Isles, by the discovery in the Indus Valley, a few weeks after the publication of this particular book, or his book, of two large series of ancient seals inscribed with Sumerian writing, unearthing from beneath the foundations of old Buddhist buildings from the 3rd century BC to the 2nd century AD at widely different sites on the Indus, and associated with the ancient buildings and tombs of the owners of the seals and cultural objects of the ancient Sumerian and Phoenician type. So we, pondering on what he was actually trying to get across, had the idea, could he have been of the British Israel ideology, and then associated or a member of the Christian identity movement, therefore being racist, etc. etc. So we thought, well, rather than come to that conclusion, we'll do our personal research and try and find some information on him and see if he actually was. So we looked up information on him, L.A.Waddell, and he was the lieutenant colonel, and here's all his qualifications here, from 1854 to 1938. He was a Scottish explorer, professor of Tibetan, professor of chemistry and pathology, Indian army surgeon, collector in Tibet, and amateur archaeologist. I guess he was an amateur archaeologist. Waddell also studied Sumerian and Sanskrit. He made various translations of seals and other inscriptions. His reputation as an Assyriologist gained little to no academic recognition. Wonder why is that? They keep trying to keep the Assyrian history under a rug, as we have found through our personal research about the Assyrian Church of the East, etc., that that's what they were doing, the Roman Catholic Church, Western theologians, etc., etc. So his reputation as an Assyriologist, the archaeological, the historical and linguistic study of Assyria and the rest of ancient Mesopotamia, and of the related cultures that use cuneiform writings. The field covers Sumer, the early Sumero-Akkadian city-states, the Akkadian Empire, etc. because he was an amateur archaeologist, I guess they didn't take him seriously. His reputation as an Assyriologist gained little to no academic recognition, and his books on the history of civilization have caused controversy. Some of his book publications, however, were popular with the public, and he is regarded by some today to have been a real-life precursor of the fictional character Indiana Jones. It's basically his life, where he was born, he grew up.
And we covered much more detail about him in the video, and we came to the assumption from what we'd read that he was all for the Aryan supremacy idea and so forth. Okay, and he wasn't recognised by his peers, and they said he had some crazy wacky ideas and so forth. You can see in the video, here in the video, if you watch it yourself. So we got these comments, okay, but we're sort of confused because we don't know if this guy's a US American nigger of the Hebrew Israelites. We had this funny feeling he was at first, but then we realised, yeah, this guy's a racist, probably a racist. He's into that Aryan claim of supremacy, superiority, the white race is this, that, and everything else that usually comes with it. We're totally confused, so we're going to jump to this other video where there's more comments towards this. Okay, this is who are the real Jews, and we asked who are the real Jews. 100% the real or true Jews, as many are claiming or have claimed that they are the true Jews and the only ones with the true scriptures and chosen people of God, because we get comments from so-called Hebrew Israelites that we think are US Negroes or African Americans, and then we go look at their channel and find out they're Arab looking, right? They probably just joined the movement or they're supporting it, and they're saying stuff to us like, oh, well, you're not black, you're not of the Hebrew race, we're true Hebrew Israelites, you don't know the Torah. All they've done is they've added an H to the Torah, yeah, and all this sort of stuff. It's not meant for you. You don't know the Torah, the Mithna, or some funny thing like that, you know, all this rubbish. We have a new guru or leader or prophet called Yah-O, who seems to be calling himself a son of God, but hinting at that he is the Son of God, i.e. Jesus the Christ. All this sort of stuff, right? He has these wacky ideas that all the baptism, etc. in the Bible, via John the Baptist to Jesus, etc., it was wrong. It's all wrong. That God told him you have to be baptized in the downfall of rain, and all sort of stuff. And then he also said, we've done a video on this, that these US Hebrew Israelites, etc., American Negroes, can't be part of his movement because obviously he's Nigerian or something like that. Nigerian based. They have to be pure African. They're half-breeds or hybrids, right? So they can't be of his religious order, right? Okay. But many of them are like putting up videos that they're teaching their children according to this Yah-O or Yah-O, whatever his name is, right? He's got some other Tongle name or something like that, Nigerian. We can't remember it. Okay. We've done a video on it, right? So they're falling for this claim, this crap, right? So anyway, to get to the meat and potatoes, we had some few comments. Okay, it's quite a extensive one here, explaining who are the real Jews or the real Israelites, because Hebrew Israelites are trying to say that they are. Okay, and they've got all this history, and then the Latinos, Chinese, Mexicans, all that are part of that 12 tribes of Israel. It's like a Rastafarian thing, right? They make the same claim, but they're 12 tribes of Israel. When what's his name? The timeline guy went around the world, or went around the Middle East looking for the 10 lost tribes, and he found them, and they were black or brown. They happened to be Indians, Ethiopians who just got shipped there, or dropped off, that got picked up by the military, and he dropped off in Israel. The Ethiopians, so they were welcomed there. Yeah, it was Indians from somewhere in India, Asians, but they were militants, and a couple of other ones. Yeah, they're all the supposedly the lost tribes, because they knew the Hebrew, how to make the matzvah, all those traditional meals, customs, etc., etc., without being prompted. Like this guy had a Jew from Israel following him around, taking him along. He says, "How the heck do all these people know how to do this stuff?" Oh, we didn't say anything. Yes, Dutch Jew. Yeah, so he found them all right. These supposed lost 10 tribes of Israel. He details it. I can't remember his name. He's on the timeline documentaries. So yeah, we're looking at some of these comments, right? Okay, someone over here, no problem, said Jacob was named Israel. We know his sons carried the stone to Scotland. The clans, there are no lost tribes. They follow Christos, who taught the way. All the tribes are gathered here in America. Our black American people are struggling with identity. There's a tribe related to David in Ethiopia. Okay, good information. We put incorrect, not necessarily lost, just mislocated or even misplaced. The documentary, The Quest for the Lost or Misplaced Tribes of Israel, by the Timeline Archaeology guy, Jovovich, an expert. Okay, there it is there. There's a link to it there. A group of people trying to find out about the location of the lost 10 tribes, mainly in Asia. They are finding some amazing answers across Asia, leading to the assumption that some tribes are still out there. As they encounter with one of the tribes, they had discovered that they maintained some ancient Jewish traditions. In other encounters, they discovered that the tribe has become Muslim, though some of them admit they are descendants from Israel's tribes. Because remember, they're apparently, scripturally, they're all lost, and there's only like 2 main ones left, Benjamin and Judah or something like that. Yeah, according to the scriptures. Manasseh, apparently, not too sure if it's actually written that they completely disappeared, where they wouldn't be seen anymore, but they found these people from the lost tribe of Manasseh and all that sort of stuff. A great research work of Simcha Jabovich, including some outstanding discovering. He verifies that 3 or more unknown peoples, the Ethiopian Jews, black Jews, walked into Israel. The Indian-based Jews found were verified as Jews, as did certain traditions. The Jew in Israel, tagging along with Jovovich, stated there was no other way they'd know that unless they were descendants of the original Jews, or the House of Israel. And also with the Asian group found in the area in China. But Jovovich realised they are very militant, armed to the teeth, and if welcomed back to Israel, they could get trigger happy and start in Armageddon. The Hebrew Israelites can't claim themselves Hebrews if they don't follow the long old Jewish traditions, customs, etc. of the original House of Israel, like making matzvah, bread, etc. The Hebrew Israelites have been refused Israeli citizenship because they are not true Jews. In Israel, there are the 96%ers said to be Khazarians, European in origin, and 4% remnants, direct descendants of the original House of Israel, who would prove they really are Jews if they have records to do so. Apparently they're destroyed. But it might have been said by top historians, theologians, we're trying to recollect that, right? There are no records to verify this, as all were supposedly destroyed when Epiphanes or Titus, I think it might have been Titus, invaded and totally destroyed the temple and burned all records. But the Jews were the Yehudaeans, who at some point took the 3 to 4 letters from their name and called themselves Yehu, later called Jews or Juden in German, etc. Around about the Middle Ages. These people were located in Mesopotamia, Syria, and so forth. Okay, the Pharisees weren't Jews. Okay, they were possibly were Jews, but they might have been enslaved Persian Jews, right? They came out, right? Hence Farsi, or the Farsi, in the language they spoke, Farsi, right? So these people that are blaming the Jews for the death of Christ are probably incorrect if these were Persians that came out of Persia that adapted this Jewish religion, Judaism, etc. Okay. So what does the Bible really say? I mean the original ancient, very old sacred scribal old tongue spoken by the Old Testament prophets like Moses, Ezra, Isaiah and more. The Lishana Atika Supreya. This actually means the language of God, spoken by God, right, to man, Supreya. So it's got Ya in the end of it, the language of God. The long deed language of the Syrian Aramaic of the original ancient very old Kitab Eshet, sister language of the original ancient very old Hebrew, or Kitab Every, even Kitab Hotep. Haven't found that one yet. Spoken by the OT prophets like Moses, Ezra, etc., and copied and compiled into one book of books by Old Testament scribes amongst an Ur Edessa, now in modern Turkey around 800 BCE, and probably again in the 1st century to the 4th and 5th. Okay? Translated into the nearest English equivalent and as close as possible to what those original ancient, very old, hidden from the Romans, the Catholic Church and Islam manuscripts, and therefore preserved by the original Assyrian Apostolic Church of the East for over 2,000 years. These manuscripts, what they really say. By using the root words of that long deed language, nobody used it anymore, or uses it anymore, just like Norse, etc. It's gone by the way of the dodo. Old Latin, Old English, Old Shakespeare speak, Old German, etc. Okay, but by using the root words of a long deed language via a modern vernacular, say like the modern Syriac, you can revive or resurrect it. Without the usual bias, prejudice, twisting, adding own flavour most translators resort to. Translated by a native-born Aramaic-speaking translator from Bet Naharain or Mesopotamia, Assyria, with over 15 years' experience in translating those original manuscripts. He brought from a high priest of the original ancient apostolic church of the East, founded by the disciples Addai, Thaddeus, in the 1st century AD. Some say Thomas, some say Addius. We at the Ministry of the Real Truth have done the real research, so we know the real history and use the original scriptures translated into English, rather than Roman Catholic, American Bible Society, Americanized Bible versions all have today, that they're teaching and preaching from, saying we know the truth, we're speaking the truth, etc., etc., when there's evidence from the Brian guy with the big bushy beard and the glasses, and also the Aramaic translator on the back of his translation of the Aramaic New Testament, or the Disciples' New Testament, and inside that all Bible versions are translations of the American Bible, which they tried to the King James Version they tried to translate into Syriac, but they botched it, right? These missionaries. So basically everything is the American Bible. It's all translations from that. We have the evidence for that, right? Okay, so I think somebody here said, the question would be, have you gone to those archaeological sites that spoke in the native language? No. Then internet sources can be taken with a grain of salt, already with 72 different whatever they said, right? So here's the reply. Okay. According to our personal research, the Hebrew Israelites claim a similar translation language, the Lashwana Kadesh. They probably made this up, okay? Which some reviews say is hogwash on their failed attempt at a so-called said dead language or old language. The translator, Victor Alexander, has spent over 15 years translating the original ancient, very old manuscripts and also the original ancient, very old Galilean Aramaic manuscripts into the nearest English equivalent, staying faithful to what those original manuscripts are actually saying. Etc. had a website, va.com, it's down. Right, we found a way to revive it or resurrect it. Okay? And that's what we're doing with these videos, looking at all these people's claims. Right? It's claims of established fact, evidence, proof, all this sort of stuff. Right? Listening hard and then doing our personal research on it. Okay? To see if they're actually the real deal or full of crud. Okay, and we come prepared and have fully covered our asses. Okay, because we knew when we first did this, well, we didn't get any subscribers or whatever, maybe one or two. We knew that people would come at us, the opposition or whatever, with their Americanized Bible versions, right, their mistranslations or whatever, and try to convince us that they got the truth, they got the gospel, they got the true scriptures translation, all that sort of stuff. When we did the research, so we did the research and we found out that they don't, okay, that the people who said on these Bible committees in the 1966, 67, 68, whatever, even 76, said we have translated from the original languages. No, you haven't, because those are all old, dead languages. unless you used a method which Victor and Alexander did, right, and revived them. Okay, because nobody uses them anymore. They're all dead. Hence, them being called dead languages. So what they've done is they've translated from more modern vernaculars or modified versions of those languages. Okay. They make no mention of the Kitab Asheret or the Ivri anyway, so it's another evidence. It's more evidence, right? So yeah, we came all prepared. Okay. Victor N. Alexander has done a documentary on the winged bull statues, as cherubims, whatever they're called, and the real history of his native country, Mesopotamia, as he is a graduate of the San Francisco Film Academy, USA. Okay, so we see him as our mentor, even though we haven't said, yeah, you are a mentor. We respect him because we had that communication with him, and we learned lots of him, right? Lots of his translation. We have looked at another that translated the supposed original Syriac Peshitta from that same original Apostolic Church of the East. Okay, Andrew Gabriel Roth, a Messianic Jew, and we have looked at others like Stephen Missick and a few others, right? Doing our personal research. Okay, so we're moving on. We put a comment here. There's a tribe related to David in Ethiopia. This is what somebody came at us with this comment. And we put, they are or would be the descendants of Solomon, as Beersheba went back to Ethiopia pregnant with his child, supposedly. Emperor Ras Mulcommon, father or grandfather of Rastafari, or Haile Selassie, Emperor the First, right? Who stated he is the descendant of King Solomon. And Rastas do that as well. These people would not be sons of Jacob, but in a sense, sons or descendants, hybrid offspring. The Ethiopians were grafted in as Jews into the Jewish circle faith, possibly through the eunuch chariot driver that Philip spoke to in the scriptures. They converted, then went back to Ethiopia and told all, and they then converted to the faith. The Coptic, right? So somewhere along the way, they've adopted the practices, underwent circumcision, because that's part of the entry ticket, okay, into that Jewish circle. You've got to be recognised, right? That's a part of the covenant of God. It's a sign, right, that you're different from everybody else. Okay, that's what it was. It was identification that you're different from all the rest of the world. Which literally means cut in, which is similar to an initiation into a club or gang, giving them entry or a means to enter that elite Jewish circle. Read about the Jews in the video we've done on what a Jew actually is. Okay, these are lies of the Talmud and so forth, so forth. Okay, it was said that the people went to England or Scotland carrying the said original ancient, very old Colburn manuscripts. We have also done a video on Joseph of Arimathea, Jesus' uncle, who went to England as he owned tin mines. Supposedly took the young Jesus with him. Then went to Scotland, built Glastonbury Abbey and stored the said original ancient Colburn manuscripts there up until it was set on fire. So watch our video on this manuscript, the Bible before the Bible, part 1, the Moses Scroll, etc. Okay, because we uncovered that, yeah, sure, it was taken there. Maybe, it was already taken there before Joseph of Arimathea got there, right? And then he built the Glastonbury church or something like that, and that's where he stored those supposed the Colburn manuscripts until it was set on fire. Okay, so somebody carried it there, probably descendants, and he got hold of it and stored it in that Glastonbury church until it was burnt down. So we've done the research on that. Okay, so this guy, sorry it took a long time to get to it. This guy, we found out this is an Irish name for Dooley or something like that. Yeah, possibly. So he might be Irish. He's probably a troll. That's what we're thinking. Troll, racist, whatever, right? Into the Aryan stuff. Because he says here, okay, we've got different comments all over the place, but we're going to go from the very first one. They were all one race, and mongrelization was not supposed to happen among them. No, they aren't a mixture of black and white and Latino and Chinese, etc., etc. Talking about the Hebrews, I think. The only real ones left are of European descent. They went to Europe, mixed with their distant relatives from Japheth. Okay, it's going right back into Genesis, that was it. And became the kings of Europe. They were to become many nations, and Japheth would dwell in the tents of Shem, meaning both these Caucasian Caucasus, Caucasus and should be Caucasians, groups merged and the Israelites were absorbed into the Japhethites. Okay. He says they're all, okay, so we replied, they were all one race and mongrelization was not supposed to happen among them. That's what he said to us, right? So asking the question, are you saying Mamses in the Hebrew? Okay, has a meaning, but according to Christian identity, because we have talked exclusively with one in particular on a chat site, 1 minute he's calling us the N-word, and then next time, hello buddy, how you doing? Yeah, it's very hypocritical, isn't it? He's a Dutch guy. He wasn't very happy. He was happy when his church was all white, Dutch, right? But then foreigners came in, Africans or whatever, Jews, whatever, and he got really upset. He wanted it to exclusively be a white-only church. So he rebelled. He wanted to start, he came across Christian identity and he wanted to start his own church or something in America, and they refused him, something like that. Okay, because it was all racist and stuff like that. Yeah, and he was saying Mamses, sorry to be blunt, he said that means bastards. It doesn't mean illegitimate sons, children, right, through incest or forbidden marriage of a Jew or member of the house of Israel with a foreign woman or vice versa. It didn't mean that at all, okay? So this guy says they were all one race and mongrelization was not supposed to happen among them. Okay? Yeah, I think he's hinting at that, this Aryan supremacist superior thing, right? Right? It all stems from the white people, the Europeans, whatever, etc., etc. So, we asked, are you saying members? He never replied back to us, right? He never answered the question, that's what they do. Right? In the sense of Christian identity, trying to say that the Hebrew word meant anyone of the inferior races, okay, Negroes, any dark-skinned people, Jews, Spanish, or that, they were inferior, that's what they say. Only they're the true race, the white race, all that sort of stuff, right? And not anyone born as a result of wedlock, an unmarried couple, house of Israel member, or Israelite, or incest, the forbidden marriages, right? Forbidden acts, whatever. So you have to go have a look at something like Bible Gateway or Bible Hub to find out what there's many verses, right? Many different translations of that particular verse, and then you go look up, define the word, what is Mamza in the Hebrew, etc., right? And that's what it is. Anyone born as a result of out of wedlock, okay, like a unmarried couple, it was forbidden marriage, all that sort of stuff, or of incest. Okay? They weren't, like I said, it says don't bring the Mamza. Yeah, you can't bring the Mamza into that circle or something like that. Right? It was forbidden, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so we asked, how about hybridization? As archaeologists, scientists, forensic DNA scientists have proven that there was a pre-Adamic man. Some Christian identity cult members call the Adamite created by the Anunnaki the Neanderthals. Okay, actually that's incorrect. Yeah, they say, well, Adamite means the perfected being, right? And it's all related to this Anunnaki myth. Yeah, the pantheon of gods, all that sort of stuff. Okay, referring to the Neanderthals. Oh, sorry, no, yeah, that's wrong. Okay, have a go again. How about hybridization? As the archaeologists, scientists, forensic DNA scientists have proven that there was a pre-Adamic man. Yeah, this Neanderthal man should be over here, right? Some Christians' identity cult members call the Adamite created by the Anunnaki the perfected being, right? But what we've read in one of those mythical Anunnaki pantheon of God books is that this perfect being was caught jumping animals, doing a rumpy pumpy with an animal. So the guy's like, what the hell are you doing, You're supposed to be the perfected being. Stop that, right? And then they created him a partner. We just got to figure out which one it actually was, have a look for it and do a video on it, whatever. Because this person wants evidence as well. And it was also uncovered in the original ancient manuscripts that were copied by scribes, monks, around 800 to 900 BC in Ur-Edessa, now modern Turkey. in the sacred scribal old tongue or language of the Old Testament prophets like Moses, Abraham, Isaac, etc., etc., named called the Lishana Artica Supraea, or Assyrian Aramaic, or Aramaic, because Assyrians say there is no Assyrian Aramaic, it's just Aramaic, of the original ancient very old Katav Ashret, the sister language of the original ancient very old Katav Ivri Hotep, spoken by Moses himself via the first book of scripture, the Brita in the Aramaic, or Genesis in English. They discovered uncovered text about the pre-Adamic man or Neanderthals. So we provided proof, verifying that it was translated into the nearest English equivalent while staying faithful as close to what the original manuscripts actually say by a native-born Aramaic translator from Bet Naharain, Mesopotamia, Syria, with over 15 years' experience. Yeah, spelling mistakes. Had to fix that. 15 Alexander. Brita, or creation, is the real name of the book of Genesis. This is his words, not mine. The word comes to us from the scribal language of the Jewish people. This is the name of the first book of the scriptures in the Hebrew Aramaic language. The Brita translation is made from the book of Genesis in the ancient Aramaic language, from the oldest manuscripts copied by hand and passed on by the original scribes and monks of the ancient Church of the East, Apostolic Orthodox, 800 BCE, Old Testament, and the first century of Christianity, OT. No, it should be NT. Yeah, New Testament, right? And maybe copies of the 4th and 5th century. It clarifies some of the biggest misconceptions about the Old Testament regarding creation, Adam and Eve, and the coming of the Messiah. And here's Genesis 1:26, or Brita 1:26. And God said, "We shall make the human being in the image, not from the dust, earth, or ground. Of our, two or more, God the Son, the Spirit, likeness, and they, two or more, shall have authority over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky and the herds and all the creatures of the earth and all the four-legged animals that walk on the earth." 28. And God blessed them and said to them, "Multiply and increase, and fill the earth and its environment, and have authority over the fish in the sea and the birds of the sky and the four-legged animals and all the creatures that crawl over the earth." We've done videos on this. The Brita, or Genesis 1-8, 8-9, etc., etc. So you can check those out to see that we're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes, or giving you a whole lot of hype and fluff, or other bacon salami. Okay, footnotes. 127.2, literal Aramaic idiomatic construction, and there created God to Adam with his visage. In the visage, defined means face. Of God, he created him in the singular, or he created him, them, hermaphrodite. This is a bit of a funny there, okay, because it's got, he created, where is it? He created them, two or more, two genders, male and female, unless, like one of those lost books states that they had one body, two heads, right? So they were both male and female joined together, all this sort of stuff, until they were separated, right? It's one of those pseudepigrapha books. Okay, so you get the idea there. They might have been, if he created two or more, he created them two or more, male and female, right? Some people might think, oh, he created a male and a female as one body, right? But it's saying he created them, which means two or more. Two genders, two sexes, male and female. Okay? God created the Aboriginal man first. Not the native from Australia, but an indigenous being, right? i.e. the Neanderthal man, pre-Adamic man. Brita, or Genesis 2:7. So here's where he makes the second Adam. It's not talking about Christ, it's talking about the human being. In regard to a human being. Brita, or Genesis 2:7. And the Lord God moulded, which means formed, created, and brought forth another Adam, okay, an Adam from the dust, or the earth, or the ground, to resemble himself, and he blew on their faces the breath of life. That's the spirit of life, right? And Adam became a living soul. The difference between these Adams and these pre-Adams is they probably didn't have, they had a soul, they had life, they were animated, whatever. They had life, they were walking around. They only had a soul. They didn't have that spirit. And that's why Adam, etc., had that communion with God, because they received the breath of life in that spirit. And they walked and talked and communed with God. The others didn't. They were sent off, told, go forth, multiply, increase, and shoo. They more or less ended up in the east. We can provide what we believe to be the evidence later on. Okay, so here's the footnotes in regard to this. 271 literal Aramaic word, adamtha, or portrait, okay, which agrees with, okay, this Neanderthal man, pre-Adamic man, agrees with archaeology and scientific evidence, but not evolution. So that led the translator to write a theory on the two Adams, called the theory of the Aborigine. I'm sure we've done a video on that. This is in regard to the pre-Adamic Aborigine, aka the Neanderthal, not the Australian one, right? And he tells you the reason why he chose that word Aborigine, because he was the people who kept to their indigenous nature, culture, whatever they were doing, right? Okay, they kept their indigenuity. Is that a word? Okay, and the Lord God moulded Adam from the dust to resemble himself, and he blew on their faces the breath of life, and Adam became a living soul. One being? No. Okay, because it says here, and the Lord God cast a calm over Adam in the singular, and they, in the plural, two or more, slept, and he, God, consecrated one of Adam's ribs, and he placed flesh in its stead. It doesn't tell you they chose one Adam, right? But it sort of might hint at it. The English Western mindset terminology can be confusing, as is the Eastern mindset terminology used in the language. Two different terminologies and mindsets that one cannot gel. Yep. Can't gel, as they're like diesel and water, they just don't gel. Does anyone know of emulsifier in your food? Apparently that's the thing that does gel oil and water. Yeah, look at the word, define the word emulsifier. Look at the ingredients. Okay, so we also put here about Genesis 6. And while human beings began to multiply in the face of the earth, daughters were born to them. Because I think he's trying to say that we said that the Anunnaki created the human beings or something. He says, no, we didn't say that, right? Or the Anunnaki created the Neanderthal. He says, no, we didn't say that. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute, I suppose. Okay, and while human beings began to multiply in the face of the earth, daughters were born to them. And people, conspiracy theorists and these other people reading these pseudepigraphers say, oh, the Book of Enoch says this, all that sort of stuff, and the Nephilim, that Satan and his angels that got kicked out of heaven or whatever they were, aliens, had genitalia and impregnated all the earthly women, right? And the Nephilim came out and all this sort of garbage, right? Okay, if we're looking at the original ancient manuscripts in the original language spoken by Moses, the Old Testament prophets, etc., and copied by monks and scribes in 800 BCE in Ur-Hai, Edessa, now modern Turkey, and then again later on. Yeah, that blows all that away. Okay, when you look at it. And while human beings began to multiply on the face of the earth, daughters were born to them, similar to what the Americanized Bible versions say. The sons of God. So this is where people think, oh, that's the Nephilim, that's the aliens came in spaceships, all that sort of crap. Right? The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and so they picked for themselves women whomever they pleased. And the Lord said, my spirit does not reside in the human being forever, because he is flesh. And his lifespan became 120 years. That's probably how long he had to live before a great disaster was going to come upon him, right? I.e. the flood. And they were giants in the earth in those ages, or that era, eon, immeasurable period, right? Days with a capital D. And even later, because the sons of God entered upon the daughters of men, and there was born to them aliens who were giants of universal fame. So all this angels bred with these women, all that stuff is rubbish if the angels are proven to not have had genitalia. Okay? And here's the footnotes. Genesis 6, Ur-Re-Ta, the Hebrew version of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Okay? So it's a adoption and adaptation of that original mythical Sumerian myth epic, right? So what they've done is they've adopted it and adapted it. So if this translator is saying, well, it all stemmed from Babylon, in his translation, right? We don't know that. He's a Mesopotamian, etc., etc. Could be true, right? But we know, as a fact, doing the personal research, that, like it says here, it stemmed from the Epic of Gilgamesh, right? Which is probably what, Mesopotamian in origin or something like that, okay, etc., etc. Okay, so if it came from the Sumerians, right? If this came from the Sumerians, and they were Semites, yet the Akkadians, who supposedly didn't exist, right? And the Babylonians were Semites that adopted and adapted their religious traditions, etc., etc., from the Sumerians, because over time, maybe the culture, the nation was slowly fading out, the language was fading out. So these Akkadians took, right? They're not so much plagiarized, but just took all the culture, the religion, the text, etc., and adopted it, right? And adapted it. And then when they started to fade out, the Akkadians, then the Babylonians did it, right? And then when the Babylonians sort of faded up, maybe the Jews in exile, if there was exile at that time, who went to Ur of Chaldea, Abraham's lot, took that with them, right? And then it took off in Mesopotamia, Syria, or Assyria. Okay? It's all personal research. We don't make it up as we go along. Okay, so okay, where are we? Just jumped somewhere. Okay, see? 6.2. Literal Aramaic expression. Daughters of the human beings, not the gods or the aliens or angels of heaven, right? Okay, because this Enoch book, we can prove that this Enoch book is pseudepigrapha. Okay, it's mentioned in the Bible. Well, no, actually, it's not mentioned in the Bible, not in the original manuscripts. But it does talk of Enoch. But it doesn't say, perhaps, it doesn't say that he lived forever, or he didn't die, or God took him up in a chariot or a flying saucer or whatever, right? Etc., etc. And he saw the seven heavens and the aliens and all this sort of stuff, right? It's not mentioned in the Brita or Genesis, right? It might be said to be mentioned that this has happened to him in the book of Acts, right? We have to look at the original Aramaic Galilean, find that verse, and have a look, see if it actually is in here, right? Okay, because you don't know what it actually was, because they say chariots, blah, blah. They're comparing something because they don't know what UFOs are, spacecraft, aliens, or whatever. So they'll just think, oh, very basic, right? Oh, well, it seems to have come from the sky. I don't know what it is, but it's got all these fire and stuff like that, right? However best they can describe it. And then they got to look around and relate something to it. And they put down, a chariot. The chariot carries you around, etc., etc., right? It had wheels like a chariot, all this sort of stuff, right? They had no word for extraterrestrial, alien spacecraft or UFO or anything like that. Okay, so Brita or Genesis again. So these daughters of the human beings, there's two lines, right? There's the descendants of Seth, who first called on the Lord in your Americanized Bible version, right? Or who were called the children of God. A holy line. Okay? Seth's descendants. And then there was Cain's before that, right? Cain's dead, all that sort of stuff. But his lot apparently were the unholy line. Or it's the Neanderthals. Okay? So what they've done is these people, these men, they left their rightful place, right? They saw that these daughters of men, or human beings, i.e. the Neanderthals, were pretty hot, right? So they bred with them, and they produced strange creatures, hybrid forms, monstrously large or giant Neanderthals. They didn't produce aliens, ETs, little green men. It says here Neanderthals. And then they go, who are you? Why are you saying one Neanderthal? Oh, there's heaps of them, hominoids, all this sort of crap. Because that's what it says there. It's translated as that. It's not going deeper and saying, well, Cro-Magnon, Batasaurus, or whatever the different not hominoids, Neanderthal types are, right? No, not talking about Cro-Magnon, etc., etc., etc. He's just referring to Neanderthals. These are the precursors, right? The progenitors. Okay? You probably have many offspring or types of Neanderthals that followed, because obviously the bones in that were discovered of different kinds, right? Cro-Magnon, etc., etc. Okay, so that's specifically pointing at this first lot of Neanderthals. Okay, go to different areas, probably interbreed, produce, let's say, argument's sake, Cro-Magnon or Pro-Magnon or Magnum, whatever, you know, the ones that followed, right? Okay, it's all hybridization. Okay, so probably because they're pretty close DNA wise, okay, that they came up with these weird or strange creatures, these giants, these hybrid forms, monstrously large Neanderthals. So we as human beings have been descendants of this interbreeding, because they eventually were interbreeded out by the humanoid, the Homo sapiens, right? So they no longer existed. So we are hybrid forms of those people. Okay, we have the animal tendencies, animal, flicker our lids, all that sort of stuff. We have those animalistic tendencies. We go ape sometimes. Okay, we lose it, and that's what they are. That's what they do, because they have no spirit. They have no spirit of God, right? In them, etc. They're just souls, and they're warlike, animalistic, etc., etc. The only way they can get rid of that, apparently, according to this translator, is by accepting Jesus Christ, right? And it makes them like a better human being. Okay, so Adam took his wife again, did the rumpy pumpy with her, and she became pregnant and gave birth, and she called his name Seth, because God gave her another offspring in place of Abel, who was killed by Cain. Okay. Oh, yeah, another. God gave her another son, right? And to Seth also was born a son, and he called his name Enosh. Thereafter they were called after the name of the Lord, the start of the holy line of which Christ would eventually be born through it. Where did Adam and Eve get ousted from the Garden of Eden paradise to where? Where did they go? They were in the Garden of Eden, then they get ousted, okay, for committing that sin, touching that tree, etc., etc. A place in the east of Eden, east of the Garden of Eden. Okay, they were no longer in paradise, and they went off to the east. Scripture tells you that. Where did Cain get ousted to when he killed his brother, right? A place east of the east, in the east. So basically it's a place east of paradise, in the east, yeah, somewhere in the east, or further into the east. Okay, how do you say this? A place east of the east of the east, in the east, yeah. A place east of the paradise, the garden, okay, because that's where Adam and Eve were put, yeah. So he was put in a place east of the east, where they were located, in the east. So he went wandering east. Okay. The land of Nod, or wandering. He was afraid someone within that land might find him and kill him within that land. Says MC Hammer. Something wrong there. Christians are telling everybody there's only Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. Cain kills Abel, that's it, nobody else. Okay, it doesn't say he had more daughters while they were talking, or more sons. Okay. So where did these other people that might kill him come from? Answer that one. Riddle me this. Answer me that one. Okay? Well, we ain't going to diddle you. It's these Neanderthals. Remember God created them in His image, not from the dust, the ground, etc. It says, shoo, go over there and multiply and increase. So they probably went to the east and did their thing. Okay? So he gets ousted into the out of the east into the east, further east, and he goes into the land of Nod, or wandering, to live in tents and wander the desert region, all that sort of stuff. And then he has a wife. Where did he find his wife? So people say, he had, Adam and Eve had another daughter or whatever, and that's his sister. That's incest. Like we were saying in another video. book of Adam and Eve part 2, or it was part 1, sorry, where supposedly Cain was born and he had a female attached to his leg, and then Abel was born, he had a female attached to his leg, and Cain lusted after whatever he wanted, Abel's one, right? So supposedly he went out and hit him on the head with a rock, to get her, all that sort of stuff. But that's pseudepigrapha. Meaning that they know that it was written. They can determine, theologians, whatever, historians can determine a date of when it was written, approximately, right? But they can't determine who the actual author was, so it's regarded as pseudepigrapha. Okay. Possibly the dating might have been in the Middle Ages or something like that. You have to go do your research on it. Okay. Okay. So he puts under here. No, hold on. You just said science has proven the Anunnaki created a Neanderthal. What? Show me some sources. I've got to see that, lol. We didn't say that. Okay. And no, they don't even say that Adam was the first man. They say he was the first white man. No, it doesn't. It doesn't say he was the white man, right? It just says God created Adam in the dirt, molded him from the dirt. Okay? And fully acknowledged there were others before him. Yeah? Interesting about the Anunnaki, though, they are simply just the children of the Sumerian god Anu and considered God themselves. These Anunnaki themselves are described as phenotypes that come from the Black Sea region, blah, 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 blah. All this information, right? Okay? And he's trying to say Enlil, one of the gods, had blonde hair. The Asian steppe, like, it wouldn't be Asian, it would be Asian Minor, wouldn't it? Steppe, like Enlil with his blonde hair and blue eyes, or Inanna with her green eyes and red hair. As you might know, the Hebrew religion took certain inspiration from the Sumerians. Well, they adopted and adapted, didn't they? First the Akkadian, then the Babylonians. Okay? Right? Hang on, we don't have a look at that again. Let's have a look at it. Yeah, Hebrew religion took certain inspiration from the Sumerians. Yeah. First the Sumerians, then the Akkadians, who adopted and adapted their myths, etc., etc. Then the Babylonians, then probably the Mesopotamians, Assyrians. Okay, and then what's his name? Abraham the patriarch, who was from Ur of Chaldea, so he's a Chaldean, ventured out. Okay, and he probably came across Eber, E-B-E-R, or Heber, H-E-B-E-R. Look at the Genesis genealogy in your Americanized Bible versions. He's the forefather of the latter Hebrews. So maybe Abraham and him crossed paths, and he became part of that tribe. Right? He merged with that tribe. So he was a Hebrew. He became a Hebrew. Okay. Then the Israelites were a different lot. They were the descendants of Jacob. Right? So Israelite is the Israel people. Ites means people. Okay. So it wasn't until he had this Jacob had these descendants that they were called and known as Israelites. Okay. It wasn't until then. Okay. This is where it says, why are you only focused on Neanderthals? There were multiple other hominids before sapiens. That's what we were saying before. In the Brito, when it's translated into English, he just talks specifically about the Neanderthal. He doesn't say, oh, that one over there, and that type over there, and that type over there, and that type over there, and that, all that sort of crap. He just says Neanderthal. Okay? Because of these first Neanderthal, right? Who were named after this guy Neander, a German, found him. The remains in caves in Germany, I don't know, 50s, 60s or something like that, maybe earlier, right? So his find was named after him. He was an archaeologist. Okay, so we put here Genesis 9. No indication here that they were Europeans, white, of African descent, or pelicans. Bit of humor there. Okay. 9-1 literal Aramaic idiom, sons or his family. That's what it says in the footnotes. Okay. That's Noah's. Yeah, Noah. Noah and his children, because remember there's only 8 people that came out of the ark. Okay. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their 3 wives. Right? There's nobody else on the earth, and they were told to repopulate it. Replenish the earth, repopulate it, which means, start over again. Redo it, repopulate it, refurbish it, replenish it, repeat it. Genesis 10, and these are the birth records of the children of Noah, the 3 sons, to whom was born children after the flood. 3 sons who then had children. The children, either their first biological children or kids born via their wives, who were also on the ark, that then grew into adults who then somehow found wives. Because there's only 8 people on the frickin' planet, where do they get their wives? Okay? Answer me that one, riddle me that one. Where did they get their wives? Ooh, maybe they had sisters. Ooh, yeah, okay. You ever thought about that one? 8 people on the planet, children born to them, and where do those children get their wives? Riddle me that one. The children of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Tiras. And the children of it goes on and on and on, right? These are their descendants that came over time, who eventually separated. These separated those that became the island nations and their language according to their culture and among their own people. Okay? These are the descendants that came over time. Noah's descendants of his sons. Okay, and here they all are here. Long list, I'm going to go through it. It'll take us forever. Okay. Here's some important information here about the Canaanites. And to Shem, Japheth's great brother, were also born children who became the father of all the children of passage. What does that mean? The children of Shem were the Elamites, the Asherai, the later Assyrians, the Arpachshadai, the Lothians and the Aramaeans. Those are those who spoke the language of their forefather Aram, i.e. the Aramaeans who spoke Aramaic Hebrew. And the children of Aram were Uz, Hul, Githa and Mash. And to Arpachshad was born Shelah, and to Shelah was born Eber, the forefather of the Hebrews. The ancestor forefather of the Hebrews. Or the Hebrews. Whatever name you try to put to it, right? But here it says Eber. Okay? Hebrews, in your Americanized Bible version. And to Eber were born 2 sons. The name of the first one was Peleg. We used to think this was Peleg. Because during his age the land was divided, and the name of his brother was Joktan. And to Joktan was born right? Havilah, probably named after Abel, because his name was, well, wouldn't be named after Abel, but named after that land where Cain killed him and buried him in the Garden of Eden. Havil. See, his name was Havil. Abel's Aramaic name was Havil. Abel's Aramaic name Havil, supposed to be Cain, or Cain, kills him and buries him in the dirt somewhere in the east of the Garden of Eden, and that land becomes Havilah, which on old biblical maps points to modern Kuwait. And then Joab, all of these were the children of Joktan. And the foundation was and the children of Shem, according to the tribes, languages, lands, and according to the people. These are the tribes of Noah. They were his descendants via his sons, according to their births and tribes and nations, and from split after the flood. Eventually the world's people were named, known, or called, referred to as, here's the footnotes, literal 10:2, that's Genesis, what was it, Genesis, where is it, 9, okay, this is 10, footnotes were 10:2, 10 verse 2, it's the first footnote, literal Aramaic name, Germans, that's what it translates as. 10:2:2, literal Aramaic name, Anglos, probably the forefathers of the Anglo-Saxons. 10:2:3, literal Aramaic name, the Medes, or they called the Medians, something like that. 10:2:4, literal Aramaic name, Greeks. It doesn't say Nords or true Aryans with blonde hair or blue eyes, who had superpowers, etc. 1025 literal Aramaic names. The last three names do not resemble any names that the translator, Victor N. Alexander, was or is familiar with at this time. His middle name is Nimrod, Victor Nimrod Alexander, not Isaac, as someone called Bennett on his blog tried to say that that's what he said it was. Okay, his middle name is Nimrod, similar to Nimrod, which his ancestry goes back to. He then had stated it would take some more research to find out the correct transliteration of the modern derivatives. Okay, because all these names probably were in the modern Syriac, with modern derivatives, right? 10.6 literal Aramaic name, Egyptians. 10.10 literal Aramaic name, possibly where the name Iraq came from. Although Iraqis are predominantly now Arabs or Muslims, the name may have survived in the folklore of the minorities, the descendants that still inhabit the land of ancient Mesopotamia. Okay. 10.21 literal Aramaic idiom, Hebrews. 10.24 literal Aramaic name, Hebrew, comes from this name Awer. Awer? Or Awer? Awer, I think it is. To cross over. Someone who crosses over, implying passage. Okay, where was that verse again? 24. Okay. Ewa. Hebrews, right? Forefather of the Hebrews. Someone or a group of people who cross over, implying passage. So they must have gone across a great lot of water. Probably those from the Exodus. Okay? And the parting of the Red Sea, etc. like that, possibly. Or the other one where they went from one land across the Jordan and went into Israel. But I'd go with the first one. Okay, footnotes in regard to real names of Cain and Abel. Okay. Literal Aramaic, Cain. Cain, it means gain. The word is probably derived from the Aramaic. 421, literal Aramaic, Havil. Abel. Ironically, it's probably where the word Abel came from. His name is Havil in the Aramaic. So, if Cain killed Abel or Havil, murdered him and then buried him somewhere in the Garden of Eden, right? And then you have the name of that land on those old maps is in the Hebrew Havilah, right? Known as modern today as modern Kuwait. That's probably where he buried him. Yeah, someone further on in the descendancy, Noah's descendants, whatever it was called, Havilah. Okay. If Lishana Atika Sapreya, it's God, right? Not too sure what this is. I think this might be like sacred scribal language, okay, that of God, because of that Ya indication on the end. Means in the original ancient very old Aramaic, this is what we're assuming, Kitab Ashrat, a once dead language, revived by the translator using a specific method. The language spoken by God to man, right? He gave it to man to tell it. They all spoke one language. Then which white European speaks it fluently or knows it fluently? None, excepting the long dead ancient and today's modern Mesopotamians. Not even the US Hebrew Israelites know of it, so they make one up, saying it is it. They something called Lawasha or something. Jewish rabbis aren't very well versed in it either. Many lie through their teeth saying they are using it. It's the modern Israeli Hebrew. It's not that original dead language. Okay, it's not. We say here it clearly isn't. We've done research and proven it, right? By asking so-called experts who are saying, yeah, we translated from the original languages. No, you haven't. What is your language? Oh, what's the one you versed in? Syriac, Hebrew, modern Hebrew. It's not the old, ancient, dead languages. We verified that from their mouth. They come out of the horse's mouth, right? Come out of their mouth. Yeah, many lie through the teeth saying they're using it. It's the modern Israeli Hebrew, etc. when it clearly isn't. As do the modern Bible committees, translating committees, when they say they've translated from the original language. Impossible. If they're all dead and no longer used, unless one uses the same method to revive them as Victor N. Alexander, the translator of the original manuscripts, did, right? They're modern Syriac or Hebrew, Israeli Hebrew, modern Greek or Latinized forms of Greek, etc. Okay, so here's the verification that I didn't say. We didn't say the Anunnaki created the Neanderthals. He's trying to twist it, say we did when we didn't. And this is what we said, what we stated. The translator, Victor N. Alexander, when he translated the Brita, the ancient original very old Genesis, found that God had created a pre-Adamic man in his image, likeness, portrait. It's in the footnotes. Read it in the right way up. Read it the right way up, dude. You just said science has proven the Anunnaki created the Neanderthal. Again, a false claim, because we didn't. What we said was, and here it is here, as the archaeologists, scientists, forensic DNA scientists have proven that there was a pre-Adamic man, or Neanderthals, found by the German archaeologists in Germany. I need to learn how to spell, get a better keyboard. In Germany, and glasses. In Germany, in caves Neander, so they were aptly named after him. Just added this here for emphasis. Some Christians identity cult members call the Adamite, who was said to have been created by the Anunnaki, the Neanderthals. It's referring to these Neanderthals, because you have a look at those myths, and it says that this guy stole a spaceship because apparently their planet was dying. The ore around it was like gold dust or something like that, and it was depleting. The planet would die, and anyone on the planet, all those beings, whatever, would die. So he steals a spaceship. He flies through space, and he ends up like on this planet, right? It's all lush and green and stuff. But he noticed that there's these beings already on here, right? These quote Neanderthals, unquote, right? So he looks around and he finds this plush and all that sort of stuff. Maybe he found gold. So he goes back and he tells them, and in the conglomeration or whole colony of them, or whatever, come in, they land on the planet and all this sort of stuff. And at first they want to go down and get the gold and all that sort of stuff and rush it back to their planet, save their planet, whatever, because it's dying, right? But production is slow. So what they do is they come up with this idea to breed, to mess with the already, let's say, Neanderthals on the planet, right, that they found, right, that he discovered. Doing genetic splicing, all that sort of stuff, and, making experiments. Some of them went wrong, some of them escaped. That's why you get these weird claims of seeing the Sasquatch, or what's the other one? Bigfoot, all that sort of stuff, right? Experiments like that. Weird looking creatures out there somewhere, right? Today, right? So they were experimenting DNA, genetics, all that sort of stuff, because they didn't like to go down the holes in the ground and you get the gold and all that. They were like scaredy cats. They didn't like the dark, apparently. This is all in the mythological Anunnaki books, right, from the tablets, whatever, right? So to speed up production as well, they decided to get one of their females, a couple of their females, and breed them, mess with the genetics and all that sort of stuff, whatever they did, to create more slave workers, which speeds up the production to get the gold faster, right? Get them working, etc., etc. The more the merrier, and ship it all back to save the planet, because they've only got like a certain period of time before it's depleted, all that sort of stuff, right? So that's what these mythical tablets texts supposedly say when translated into English. Okay, so so that's what we said, right? And this is what, because we have experience with a guy who is a Christian identity, and he goes by this name, on one of these chat sites that we were on years ago, right? We're still going back there now and again, and that's the name, one of the names that he chose to use, right? The Adamite, and he went on and on about this, and that's, we learned a lot of stuff from him about that, because he's Christian identity, the guy that didn't like his church going from all white to all coloured, right? Different races, got all upset, so he really doesn't like that sort of stuff. And that's the same guy. Sometimes he calls us the N-word, just to be a jerk, and then other times he'll say, "Oh, how you doing, buddy? Haven't seen you for a long time, my friend." All that sort of stuff. It's like, well, that's hypocritical, isn't it? So so this guy's trying to twist what we said, right? Twice. Of course, it all comes from the Sumerian myths. We're agreeing with what he says, who weren't Semites, and adopted then the Akkadians, Babylonians, adopted then adapted the stories, making them more palatable. They changed some details. They changed what the ark looked like. The description, changing many of the names of people like Noah, Actually, in Palestine, apparently his name was like Na, something like in apostrophe AH, right? So it's pretty close to Noah, right? But in these myth epics, he's known as Atrahasis, Upancham, etc., etc. And later on, they've changed it to Noah, that he was on the water for 6 days, all this other different stuff, right? Okay, a buzzard was sent out, and then a raven or something like that. Yeah, slight different variations. Yeah, but they all come from the Sumerian, through the Akkadian, through the Babylonian, through the Mesopotamians, Assyrians, etc. Right? Okay, and then the Hebrews and all that adopted and adapted and changed some details, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so changing the name, many of the names of people like Noah, details of what the ark looked like. It's a coracle. Look at Irving Finkelstein, is it? Irving Finkel. Yeah, Irving Finkel. And his translation of the ancient Babylonian cuneiform text, where it was a plan from a god, one of the pantheon of gods, maybe Anu, that loved these creations, human beings, etc., right, these hybrids, heard that the gods were sick of them making heaps of noise or something like that, causing a ruckus, had enough of them, so they're going to flood them by hitting the polar ice caps, possibly with a laser or something like that, and then fly off and just leave them to it, right? Never come back. So, loving these creatures, decided, well, got to live on. So here's the plans for a boat, blah blah blah. And this certain boat builder, he did it, and Finkel and his team remade that ark exactly to plan, right, from this cuneiform text, and it was round, right? It wasn't like this pretty watermelon shape or sushi roll or whatever, right? It was this round coracle, what they call a coracle. Had a little house or whatever on top, and it's like a black rubber tyre that you used for swimming, when you were a kid, but it was like much higher, made out of all these twigs and tar and all this other stuff, right? Yeah, so they've obviously changed it somewhere along the way. Okay, if that's where it originally came from. Okay, so people believe a myth over time is the truth, right? And then they go pushing it, it's the truth, when it's actually a myth. It's taken from the Sumerian, through the Akkadian, through the Babylonian, through the Mesopotamians, the Sumerians. They're taken as literal truth, haven't they? Yeah. Okay, so read the myth books with glasses, bruh. You need glasses. Where they say they were white, supposed to be white Adamites, perfect beings, one of whom got caught sexing an animal. It doesn't matter, as they're all myths. Myths, bro. Myths. Okay? Myths contain a little bit of truth, okay, and a lot of fiction. Yeah? Go and define the word myth or mythical, right? Try myth. The white claims I've heard from racist, bigoted Christian identity members who 1 minute are calling me the N-word, then the next time I'm their bro, their buddy. Spend a lot of time talking with one on chat hour, you might know him. Bit of sarcasm there. Okay? So he comes back at me saying, you're saying God created Neanderthal in his image. Now I'm getting confused by a point. Yeah, because he's not reading it properly. He's jumping, he's skipping, right? So, because he says in an earlier one, that another one, he jumped, right, and went to the last link or something, last part of it. So he didn't read in between. If he had of, then he would have understood it, right? It would have been clear what I was getting at. Okay, so I replied, it's very simple. What part of it's simple doesn't one get? In the original, ancient, very old, sacred scribal tongue or language, I made it bigger so you could read it, just in case you have eye problems, language of the original ancient manuscript spoken by Moses, the Old Testament Moses, Isaiah, Ezra, etc. The Lishana Supraya of the original, so you put Yah here, because it's supposed to be, well, I don't know Aramaic that well, or at all, but if you can ask a proper Ninevite Aramaic translator like Victor Alexander, if you can get hold of him, what does this mean? He probably means the sacred scribal language of Yah, or God, of the original ancient long D language revived by the native-born Aramaic translated from Mesopotamia. Old Testament dated around 800 BC, maybe 900, and later copied by monks, scribes in the 1st century AD. It was discovered when he translated the originals into the nearest English equivalent, staying faithful to what those manuscripts actually said. He was quite surprised, Okay, the ancient writers scribes had copied the texts which contained the verses about the pre-Adamics before the human beings, or the Adam and Eve, right? Later, one was modified or modernized. Oh, this is language, yeah. Okay. Later, one was modified Hebrew, because the Aramaic and Hebrew were sister languages, originally having the same words, same meanings. Now they have similar words but different meanings, right? And there's a vernacular, one vernacular derivative, whatever, right? Okay, so one was modified or modernized as vowels were added to it. Okay, Aramaic never had vowels. It had an A, but it was considered a consonant, right? I don't know about, yeah, just about it, yeah. Something like that. It had the A, but it was regarded as consonant, right? So this modern language, the Hebrew, right, was modified or modernized as vowels were added to it in the dot system, whatever that's called. We don't know that name. We only know the other one, the Imam, the Muslim one, Nuk or something, which only changed the structure. Which not only changed the structure, but the meaning of the words. So the Aramaic Hebrew, they were sister languages, originally having the same words, same meanings. Now they have similar words, but different meanings. Okay, you have like Iyuma, which means day. It means immeasurable period or unfathomable period, era, age, eon, or day with a capital D. Whereas you have the Hebrew, where it's Yom, it's day with a capital D in some cases, but they have a completely different meaning of the word, right? They're probably referring to it as a day of the week, 7 days, 6 days creation, 1 day off, 7 days, that's a week, etc., like that. Unlike their sister language, where it's saying Iyuma, Y-U-M-A, which translates as, from the Aramaic into the English, immeasurable or unfathomable period, meaning that no man was here to say, right, God started at this time on this date, and he finished on this date and had a rest, right? There's no man to write it down or to verify it, right? Okay. So, things there are different. Okay, different. They were both sister languages, and one was modified, so thanks to the Masoretic, apparently, later on, right? If no such evidence exists today in any or all the top museums of Neanderthals, pre-Adamic man, like the Homo erectus, Homo cro-magnon, etc., then it's all fake. All those remains are fakes. It's all lies, etc. But their remains exist. If you go to those British museums, the Louvre, whatever it's called, in Paris, you might find these old bones there, right? But their remains exist. It's an established fact. Then we ask, if that's all lies, right? There's no such thing, right? Never happened. Then were we all really apes that evolved into humans, beings, as Charles Darwin and atheists, etc., claim? Or Sitchin, or what's his name, Mario Biglino, etc., claiming we're all alien hybrids, genetically created as slave workers, as many conspiracy theorists, etc., profess, like Zechariah Sitchin, Mario Biglino, etc. We are one or the other. We can't be both, right? Which one are we then? Of course, this guy doesn't answer questions, does he? If all are from myths, sci-fi or other, we have many options to choose from. But we need to do real research and find the real truth, establish the claims of facts as facts through evidence that proves itself evident, and coming from writers who are proven infallible and irrefutable, because then you can deem their writings as infallible and irrefutable. As there's too much bacon sausage out there professed, told and sold us as the truth or the gospel, right? When it isn't, right? They're selling you that down the road. They're selling you a whole lot of baloney, right? It's all about control and all that sort of stuff. The Neanderthal remains are in the museums. Visit the British one sometime, or the Louvre in Paris. Where did Abraham originate from? He was a Chaldean, born in Ur of Chaldee, Mesopotamia, not from Orc, or the Planet of the Apes, or the Stargate Sector 9. Abraham later merged with the Hebrews tribe, Heber being the forefather of the latter Hebrews, as Isaac was the forefather of the Israelites. It means people. You got the British, Britons, Brit people. Men in, or Brit man, men in Genesis 6, from the line of Seth, the new holy line, left their rightful place in the presence of God as children of God and chased after the unholy line's daughters, etc., because they're hot. And probably these Neanderthals souls were not filled with the Spirit of God, so followed the animal instinct, the animal nature. They were animalistic, as depicted through all of the info, facts, etc. on them. Okay, so you got a reply from him or something. So he said, dude, the reason why I say Neanderthals as it's translated is that in the beta into English by the translated English. That's in reply to why are you using the one Neanderthal? Why aren't you? Because there's plenty more and all this stuff, right? This is the answer to that. Okay. The reason why I say Neanderthals, I said Neanderthals as it's translated is that in the beta into English by the translator in English. It doesn't go deep and say these Neanderthals, then that type of Neanderthals, then that one, then the other one, and then that one. Okay. Adams, the pre-Adams, the Neanderthals in English, so one will know what the translator is trying to get at or get across to people reading his now downed website, of which we found a way to resurrect it. And I alone so far am the only one allowed, by his permission, I guess, we're assuming, to research it, present it, as he is subscribed to my channel, ×2 I think, and approves of me doing it. He's given some great comments on it. As I'm doing it justice, doing it correctly, I hope, as it's copyrighted to him. Yeah, he could have pulled the, you can't do that, the copyright card, right? So much so that the Assyrians that I've asked questions of, like Ashur, etc. I probably have asked them some questions, I'm pretty sure I have. And other Assyrians, native-born Assyrians, have remarked that they are amazed at how a person from down under, near Antarctica, can pronounce their language and knows their religion and history so well. Apparently they can't stand their history, right? They don't want to talk about their religion. That's what a couple of them said, right, in comments under videos when I was talking to them. As a non-native born Aramaic speaking Assyrian, they're like just totally blown away. Okay? It's sort of guesswork, you know, like, well, I think this word sounds like that, you know. To look at all of the three major religions, Judaism, Christianity and Islam, listen to their claims. You've got to listen so you can understand it, right? Claims of fact, evidence, pull it apart, do personal research to determine are they the real deal or full of shite, and expose them as such is my mission, or our mission and destiny on earth. We've come across different things that say this and say that, and they're all saying the same thing. So yeah, we know our purpose, we already knew our purpose, or our mission, destiny, whatever, but you know, it's just like the fear sets in, oh, we're going to get ridiculed, going to get hassled, all that sort of stuff, but we don't care anymore. We'll do it, we'll get out there. We just need the prompting and to kick up the bum and get out there and do it. It's hard because there's just too much info for one group to have it all. No one's got it all. No one's got all the answers, or certain parties, you know. As much as they might say, yeah, we know it all. We got all the information. No way, it's just too much to to look at. There's so many different variations, so many claims, so many misquotes, mistranslations, you know, false claims, whatever. Yeah, so you got it's like a sift, right? You got to sift everything through this special sift, and be left with the the true product. You know, discard or throw away the other rubbish, right? That people are trying to convince you. Okay, because like kung fu masters who won't reveal their secrets to their students or just anyone, because one day they may kick their butt using it, or totally mess it up, and go out there and teach it totally wrong, and oh god, every student gets a hiding because they didn't know it in the first place, didn't know it, in the first place. Okay, or other stylists kung fu is crap all over it. Or in the case of religion, others will want to tear it. This is probably a better analogy. Or in the case of religion, others will want to tear it to shreds to disprove it. Yeah, they want to debunk it. That's their whole mission. Yeah, and promote their own. And others might want to promote their own, or defame or shite all over the opposition in order to be the top church, religion, or movement, and push their hidden motives, agendas, rendering, flavour, twist, dogmas, doctrines, propaganda. And these who do this are propagandists. That's what they are, right? They got hidden motives and agenda, i.e. they're propagandists. They're pushing their crap, trying to convince you in order to control you, etc., etc. Right? So that's one basically. So now we're going to go to the other video, because there's a few more comments from the same person, but just under another video at the same time. Okay, he was messaging us over here in the comments, right? So some of them might not be there. Okay, and he said something about racist or something. What if all these racists are actually right? So he put, what happens if these people that we keep calling racists are right? Well, our answer was, what if they are? Where is the real evidence that they are 100%, if not 1000% right? Okay. The racism is latent in the guy's book, right? It comes through the book, plus his peers, etc. Right? Those who have the same qualification as he supposedly is, expertise, whatever. Okay, so then the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians would be right about aliens creating all things and dwelling among them. Hitler and his Aryan stance belief would be right without any question, and racism is the truth. So his Nazi generals shouldn't have been put on trial and sentenced to death, as they were the perfect race superior to all others. And you got a definition of racism. We deliberately separated it. Ism, defined. This dictionary website. Ism, practice, process, manner of action or behaviour, characteristic of a specified person or thing. Prejudice or discrimination on the basis of a specified attribute. Remember Bob Marley's song? I think it's Stand Up For Your Rights with Peter Tosh, and he says, sings, we're sick and tired of ism schisms, don't go to heaven in ism schism, you know? And that's what he's talking about. The ism schisms. The prejudice or discrimination, right, coming through against them, black people, etc., right, the Easterns, by these Westerns, right, through these scriptures, etc., like that. They can see it, this bias, this racism, you know, out there in the world. They can see that and feel that racism, right? Okay, Wikipedia. Racism is the belief, or it should be I think. I don't know, I'm too sure what it is. Racism is the belief that a group of humans possess different behavioural traits corresponding to inherited attributes and can be divided based on the superiority of one race over another. It may also mean prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against other people because they are of a different race or ethnicity. Right? Here's some more. The meaning of racism is the belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Also, behavioural attitudes that reflect and foster this belief, racial discrimination or prejudice. Again, here's the Aryan race, definition of that. Okay. So what does this mean and indicate? This guy, this writer of this book, favoured one race supreme. He was biased, prejudiced, a racist. He hints in his book his biased, prejudiced views. Okay, very subtly though, by the looks of it. The isoformalism of race, culture and language has been rejected as an erroneous conception by modern scholars. His isomorphism of race, right, within that book, within his writings. The term was adopted by various racists, as well as all that's in the world, right? The term was adopted by various racist and anti-Semitic writers during the 19th century, including Arthur D. Gobineau, Richard Wagner, and Houston Stewart Chamberlain, whose scientific racism influenced later Nazi racial ideology. By the 1930s, the concept had been associated with Nazism and Nordicism, okay, and used to support the white supremacist ideology of Aryanism, which portrayed the Aryan race as a master race, with non-Aryans as racially inferior and Untermensch, and an existential threat to be exterminated. Under Nazi rule, these ideas formed an essential part of the state ideology that led to the Holocaust, which in the Aramaic means sacrifice. Okay. The term Aryan was used as an ethno-cultural self-designative identity of the Indo-Iranians and the authors of the oldest known religious text of Rig Veda. And apparently they're not the oldest. Okay, if the Egyptian text translated by A.W. Wallace Budge, and he states they were the oldest, then they can't be. These Indian religious texts of Rig Veda and Avesta can't be the oldest. Okay, and it's talking about Indo-European language families, Sanskrit and Iranian, who lived in ancient India and Iran. Okay, when did this Rig Veda come out, right? Many Indians say, 3,000 years ago. Oh, no, 5, no, 10,000, a million years ago, right? Don't think so, okay? If these people didn't exist in the time of Noah, there's only 8 people on the planet, I don't think so, okay? If that's fact, right? Or those later descendants. They had to branch out. These people, according to the scriptures, branched out first, and then became those people, right? Okay. So there would be some sort of time frame. You can only go back 5,000 years. Chronologically, that's what we found. Okay. It goes on about the Sanskrit, etc. Okay. What's this? The now discredited and chronological reconstruction of North European hypothesis was endorsed by such scholars who situated the PIE or Pi homeland in northern Europe, which led to the association of Proto-Indian Europeans. Oh, that's what it means. Originally a hypothesized linguistic population of Eurasian PIE, Aryan then came to be applied to this racial grouping. In many cases, scholars point out that even in ancient times, the Aryan identity as asserted in the Rig Veda was cultural, religious, and linguistic, not racial. Nor do the Vedas contemplate racial purity. The Rig Veda affirms a ritualistic barrier. An individual is considered Aryan if they sacrifice to the right gods, which requires performing traditional prayer in a traditional language and does not connotate a racial barrier. So there you go. Michael Witzel states that term Aryan does not mean a particular people or even a particular racial group, but all those who had joined the tribes speaking Vedic, Sanskrit, and adhering to their cultural norms, such as ritual, poetry, etc. Scholars state that the historical Aryans, the Vedic period Bronze Age tribes who lived in Iran, Afghanistan, and the northern Indian subcontinent, composers of the Rig Veda and Avesta, were unlikely to be blonde or blue-eyed, contrary to the proponents of Aryanism and Nordicism. Okay, so it's a load of crap, right? It's false. His peers, this writer's peers stated, the reader does not need to peruse this work very far to become aware of its distinct bias, emphasis on bias here, and unscientific method. Fortunately, the Nordic race-mongers have become discredited that there is little to fear from the effect of this opus on the intelligent lay public. Succinctly, Mr. Waddell believes that the beginning of all civilization dates from the Nordic Aryan Sumerians, who were blonde Nordics with blue eyes. Waddell, during his own life, was deemed to be anachronistic by most scholars because of his supremacist views regarding the Aryan race. One of the reasons for the literary oblivion of Waddell's works on the history of civilization with an Aryan theme is, I'm not too sure what that word is, it's in parenthesis, but look at it, in relation to the fact that he did not give up the quest for the Aryans in terms of racial origins when it was abandoned in the 1870s, and it was further influential in his choice of career. His comparative studies and decipherment led him to a completely controversial and alternate perspective of ancient history. Furthermore, the titles that are now little known may have been sidelined due to his use of the term Aryan as it became associated with the rise of Nazism. Again, we go on about ruddy. If a Bible-believing Christian, I'd say check out the word for ruddy. Okay. So I think he did, and he came back at us and says, no, that's not the meaning of it. Damn, the definition says, this is what it means. Okay. Ruddy, definition of or having a fresh, healthy red colour, a ruddy complexion. Encyclopedia, Standard Bible Society. Okay, here's the word here in Hebrew. Adharmony. Samuel 16:12, 17:42, Genesis 25:25. The Revised Version margin, that's Americanized Bible version, right? Adham, Song of Solomon 5:10. Verbs add ham, Lamentations 4:7, and Ruthriel, to blush, whatever that is. Is that Ecclesiastes? Not really sure. 15:5. Ruddy is the form taken by the adjective red when used as a term of praise of the human skin, and this is its use in the Bible. The Hebrew and Greek words are all usual words for red or to be red. The dark-skinned Hebrews found great beauty in a clear complexion. Realize the hot sun beating down someone in warm to hot climates, especially in hot desert regions, etc., makes one dark or darker. Yeah. Okay. Many examples out there. And he goes on about, how about the sapphire overlay, mentioned on only his parts described as alabaster or ivory. You don't think it's a visible vein seen as particularly pale people? Okay. Well, we looked at this book. I've got the name of it. You've got the name of it. Might have mentioned it on another one. Not the other one, the other videos. The Jew one, right? What we're actually reading by this lady. What's her name? J. Cheryl. Is Azum or Kazum or something like that. And it seemed like when she was going on about Solomon and the dark black lady from Kedar, his potential lover. It spent a lot of time seeing him through her eyes, and it was hinting at poetry, romance, love, sensuality. It's all allegorical, metaphorical, that sort of stuff. She's saying weird things. Actually, the poet, because apparently he's a third person, right, was saying weird things like, "My lover makes my lettuce moist," or something like that, referring to different parts of her anatomy, all this sort of stuff. But yeah, we realised it was allegorical, metaphorical, very sexual, etc. in part. And then it finally got to Solomon, and it described him, but it's all allegorical and metaphorical, right? She's, through her eyes, she's seeing him as, or comparing him to, right? Okay? He's pretty muscly, he's pretty strong, all this sort of stuff, right? Etc. It's not saying that he's got two legs like a pillar, or pillars of gold, or arms of gold, or like crowbars or something like that. It's not saying all that sort of stuff, right? It's just like a poet, a person's writing it, like a poetic writer or whatever. He's writing it all down, right? All that sort of stuff. But it's like poetry between two lovers, or poems between two lovers, affection for the other one. One sees the other one, in that light, and the other one sees that one in that light, and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, but it's all metaphorical, allegorical, and he's got the Hebrew and all that sort of stuff, meanings, you know. Yeah, it took 206 pages before it got into the detail of Solomon, right? Yeah, we downloaded it. It was free online. Okay, so yeah, basically this guy was saying, "Oh, you said this, you said that," and he was twisting it. So we backed it up and says, no. We said this, we said that. The translator, wrote this, stated this, all that sort of stuff. We didn't say that the Anunnaki created the Neanderthal man, all that sort of stuff. As we said earlier, not so long ago in this video, this guy stole the spaceship. He came to this planet, and he saw that there were already these beings on the planet, i.e. these Neanderthal men, right? Etc. So this person says, I need to see all this evidence from these mythical books, etc. So we're going to look at that, not today, but maybe later. But yeah, hopefully this isn't too long, and you found it interesting. Okay, what kind of people you're up against? See, we weren't too sure whether this guy was a Hebrew Israelite, coming at us, because this video here, right, being centered around these US Hebrew Israelites, etc. Right? Okay, so he did some prying a little bit on his channel and found him to be Irish. Okay, so if you like it, subscribe, add your comment below, give us a thumbs up, and we'll catch you later.